Morning, everybody. Welcome to East Tennessee Pinball. This morning, I've got a soundboard out of a Harlem Globetrotters. This thing is actually working, but it's a little bit sick. The sound just doesn't sound very good. It's real tinny and not scratchy, but just kind of tinny, which leads me to think that it's got a problem with some of the capacitors. And just on a quick look at it, I can see right away that they're all the original capacitors. For instance, this one's got the date printed on right on here. It's the 17th week of 1978. Come around the corner here, look a little closer. You can see right there that the goo is starting to leak out the end of it. This thing is dead, or it's not completely dead probably, but it's not very healthy. It needs to be chunked and replaced. On these old on a lot of these older soundboards, you know, the way they make the sounds is it's not like a wave file that's recorded. It's actually generating the sounds every time it makes a little bleep or bloop or whatever. Even the really simple ones, they're generated kind of mathematically with, they start with a mathematical signal and then they process it through these different capacitors, help kind of attenuate and modify the signal until it makes a certain sound. So if you don't have the right or good capacitors, it won't sound right. And even the properly operating from board to board, they may sound slightly different just because there's always a little bit of variations on these different capacitors. But anyway, you need to have some good capacitors. Another thing I saw on this board, flip it over here. This is real common. You see this all the time. Are cold solder joints, particularly the ones on the ends. If you look really closely there. If you look real closely there, you can see that last pin there is broken away from the solder. Probably see it on this one over here. Yeah, you see it even better. That pin is basically floating in there free. It's not really attached. So you get little intermittents or weak signals, and you generally see that on the end of, see, that's the, if I flip this back over, that's the end of the connector harness or the header pins, and basically it's from people wrenching. And I do the same thing. I act like it's bad, but everybody does it. You kind of twist it back and forth to get the thing to come off, and so that happens. So I am going to swap out all these capacitors. By the way, you can if you're doing this yourself, you can go online. There's lots of places you can just buy a kit for this one. They're probably like 10 or 15 bucks. If you're doing it very much, it's a lot cheaper to just go ahead, buy all the capacitors you're going to need, and buy them in bulk. And it's probably 25% of the cost, which is what I go ahead and do. And for like this 100 UF 100 volt DC, you want to use the same 100 UF 100 volt or larger for the voltage. You can always go up in the voltage. That's basically how much voltage it can handle. The capacity is the UF. That one you want to keep the same. And on this one, that's probably the filter capacitor. I'm not sure. I'm guessing that probably is. And on the filter capacitors, it's not super important on the size. You just have to be kind of close or a little bit bigger. Sometimes you get away with it. But these other ones, you want to have the right size value because that's actually helping make the sound signals. So I'm going to swap these out and we'll see where we're at. So here's the final result with all the new caps in there. Just one thing, obviously, you got to keep track of your polarity. Most of these caps on these boards are polarized, so they got a positive and negative side, so you got to keep that track. Just show you the back of it. You can see where I did all the soldering. You can see the flux. I'll clean that flux up with a little bit of alcohol and a toothbrush and throw it in the game. The flux isn't really conductive, but it's just kind of messy looking. Throw it in there and we'll see how it plays, how it sounds. So I got the board in the game here. Been doing a lot of work on this game. It's got a lot of issues. Been doing a lot of repinning. I just saw this note on here. Game works great, cleaned inside and out. I hope that wasn't a recent note because if you just look around, it's filthy, and there's lots of issues with it even working and booting. But anyway, so let's see what it sounds like. I'm gonna hit the coin switch. Probably can't tell how good it sounds, but it sounds pretty awesome actually. So success. So I'm gonna move on to the next of it.